Okay. Good morning and welcome. This is the Utopian Conclave, episode number 2, Attacking, Ambush, and WPA Calcs using the new Intel site. This is David C., and I have my special guest here, Smiles, from one of the top kingdoms competitively over quite some time, Warbirds, and I'm not sure. Are you guys? Have you guys been open to your location yet this age? What do you guys think?
Uh, I think there's a fair bit of rumors, but we aren't tagged yet.
Okay. So we have Smiles here from Warbirds. He's been one of the top leaders, competitive leaders, players for quite some time now, and he's going to join us here today as we discuss some of these really important topics here at the Utopian Conclave. So, Smiles, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit? Tell everybody a little bit more about yourself, your history, and why I might want somebody like you here to help us discuss these very important topics here today.
Thanks, David. Let's just double check. No one's screaming at me that I'm horribly echoey yet, so I think we're good to go.
Yeah,
Um,
I think we fixed that
like
here
I'm
today.
sure many people watching, I started by just randoming into a kingdom with barely much knowledge about Utopia. It's just something my older brother Redbird had played 15 years prior. Um, and he loaded it up out of nostalgia. And he was like, well, I need someone that can actually get things done, so to speak, knowing I'm a gamer, called me down. And before you knew it, we were playing. And yeah, just a ghetto superstar for a couple years, trying to play with a random group of people. So I definitely know that struggle many people have when it comes to people missing waves in war, going 24 hours inactive, just a constant struggle to sort of compete with the established kingdoms, not even having the bot set up sort of thing. So I do know the struggle as much as I come off pretty arrogant. But then 3 years down the line, I was a founding member of Warbirds. I still lead Warbirds this day. We've crowned uh, all of the crowns, though not at once, and even crowned last stage, so we're still going strong.
Nice. And do you remember what your first age was? What number was it?
I joined at the very end of age 68.
Okay.
I
And
made some sort of dwarf cleric. I remember going into an end of age war with, zero point 0.9 TPA, zero point 0.5 WPA, and just getting shelled just
right,
within an hour, just hundreds of ops on me because I was a fat little boy.
completely unprepared. Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe now I forget exactly was I in the kingdom in age 68 or was it 69? Because I remember I think we played
It
together.
was 69 or 70. It was pretty soon after. I don't think you were already there yet.
No, I think I might have joined that age, like the your following age, and yeah, that was fun. I think I played for the one age, if you
I
can
don't know if
call
I'd
if you
call
can
that
call.
playing, Dave.
Well, that was no, I was actually playing. So in age 69, that was before Muga actually took over Utopia. So it was before we got into it. I mean, I had known at the time that we were going to, but it hadn't been released yet. So I was still in hiding, I guess. And then yeah, and now look at you leading
Now
one of the top kingdoms
covered in crowns.
yeah, all of the crowns. So all right, we've got the message out to everybody. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about here today. First, what I'd like to do. So thank you for being here again, Smiles. It's wonderful to have somebody with the experience and knowledge. Like you said, going from not knowing anything, just having somebody, a friend, a brother, bring you in and learn it all, and now be one of the top competing kingdoms in whatever you guys want to do. It's whether it's warring or honor or land net worth. You guys have done it all, and you can do it all. It just takes a little bit of time, persistence. And I remember as you were growing your kingdoms, dealing with new players and randoms and all kinds of stuff. Coming in to find the right players that fit your play style and building your kingdom. And it takes time, but eventually you find the right people and you make the right relationships, and here you are, and never been happier, right?
Yeah, it's pretty great.
All right, so one thing I want to just take a quick look at first is, oh, and it's not the right one. Oops. I thought we had it. I thought we had it set up right, but it does not appear to be showing the right one. Let's see. Let me get this fixed up here. I want to be looking at the wiki right now, and I'm not. All right, so let's just do this. We'll go over here. Grab the wiki. So I wanted to just do a quick review of some of the things we talked about last time. And last time we went over the attack gains formula, understanding just how to attack, how to choose targets, and what to expect. Because you can pretty much guess down to, or not guess, right down to the acre of how much you should expect to receive when you attack somebody. So we start here at the wiki. If you follow me along there, right at the top of your page, you've got access to the wiki. It takes you to this page over here. And what we're going to look at here today is that attack formula. So we're going to go over, and there's all sorts of stuff here, but we're going to click on this number 3, come down to the attack gains. And this was that attack formula we went into a little bit of detail last time. We're not going to go into all the details again here today, but just a quick review of the things we looked at, where we find it. The wiki, once again, is a great resource. Smiles uses it. I use it myself when I am playing for quick access to just information that, the game is so large and complicated. There's so much information that can be in there that it's really hard for any person to just know it all. And so anytime I need information, I always check the wiki first just to, see what to expect. And now the provinces that I have for us to use here today are on Genesis. So the specific details of how this works are generally the same, but some of the numbers might be different. So the formula for the attack type is going to be slightly different, but all the other stuff is pretty much going to stay the same. All of these for us here today are going to be basically ones, so that it's not going to modify anything other than we can input the target resource, and the attack type is going to be traditional march. Relative province net worth should be within the standards as we can see here. Right within the standards, relative kingdom net worth should be the same because both kingdoms are only one province each, and so it's going to be right within the gains, so that it's not going to affect anything. The only things that we should see affected are the attack type, which if we go down and look just a little bit to see, attack type base gains 12%, capped at 20%. We'll go into a much deeper dive into max gains and base gains and like the nitty gritty details. We'll do that some other time. But for our purposes today, what we're looking at is a 12% gain. However, like I said, on Genesis, there's some fairly wonky mechanics, and Smiles actually hit that last time we spoke about this right before I made the attack. I said, what do you think we're going to get? And he said, well, we're on Genesis, so who knows what could happen. And it was the development environment that I used that had some formulas in it that were adjusted fairly differently. And so we did get some really weird results there. But we are on the actual Genesis server here today. So it's not going to be 12%. It should be 15%. And the cap is different, but with everything being ones up here, there should be no way that we can hit the cap or even really get close to it. So we should get about 15% from the attacks that we're going to make here today. And yeah, so we're going to actually put it into action if I can get my screen working here.
Let's see it, David. Yeah, 15% on the dot.
15%. I just need to get us to see the right screen. We can't see my All right. Gonna do a little on the fly here. We're gonna add a new window. And let's choose the right one. Okay. There we go. Let's get this down here. Okay. So we've got, oh no, somebody's found us. Okay, here we are. This is my province here on Genesis. For those of you watching, don't mess this up for us. But I've got just enough offense, it looks like, to attack our target. But one of the things we want to talk about here today is choosing a good target. How do we look for a target? And there are some in-game resources. So as you can see right over here, we've got the targets button, which allows you to search for targets in stances, ranges. You know, this 90 to 110%, you know, is going to be the closest range, which is going to give you, you know, typically the best gains, depending on some of the other factors there. But it allows you to search for different different potential targets by race, whether they're at war, you know, in a certain stance, because all these things can affect the potential gains that you have. So I already know who I'm going to attack, but typically for me, when I'm making attacks, especially on a server that's, you know, just out of protection, or, you know, just doing a complete random attack, I don't have any retails that I need to make or anything like that, I'm just searching for somebody to attack. I always start at the kingdom page and I just start looking to see, is the kingdom in war? Number one, is there a lot of players in that kingdom that could you know, retaliate, that could, you know, hurt me or my kingdom mates? And in this particular example, I don't have any kingdom mates, so it doesn't really bother me right now. So I'm just gonna, you know, look around for some targets, and oh, what do you know? I have a wonderful target right over here in Smiles. Smiles, we're gonna take it to you here today. And there's a couple ways to actually get this information there. And, you know, one of the commonly unknown ways to actually grab information is this. If we click on the province here directly, it takes us to this province operations page, is what we refer to it as. You can see up in the taskbar there, province operations, where it allows us to do thievery operations right here. It allows us to do you know, cast spells. It allows us to make an attack right from here. It allows us to do everything that we could do in one page. Now, I don't typically use it very often. I'm old school. I like to just go through the way that I learned, and that's just the way I enjoy doing it. So, but it does make it really convenient. Right from the kingdom page, you can click on the province, and you can access all their information right there. Grab their intel, cast some spells, and make the attack all in one area. But what we're going to do here today is
I use that a lot for target finding. I'll be, you know, on a PC, I'll be going kingdom to kingdom looking at likely targets. I'll middle click each of their provinces and then just get that SOT right through there. So it's a convenient way to do things. Once I actually need to rob or attack, I usually get to the sidebars there, but
yeah,
it is a nice little feature.
Yeah, I do the same thing, you know, like you said, when I'm just grabbing intel for, like, my kingdom mates. If I'm just trying to grab intel from everybody, I might use it that way, as it can be sometimes quicker. But today, what I just did there, I came back to the thievery page, I changed my target to Smiles' kingdom, and then I chose him as a target. He is 101% of my relative net worth, which means he's going to be a perfect attack for me. He has offensive specialists, defensive specialists. He has elites. And here's what he has for offense and defense, if all his army is home. Now, if I want to check whether his army is home, I'm going to check this spy on military here. Oh, goodness, a bunch of fails. You've got too many thieves there, Smiles. And so we can see he's got all his army home, all his troops home. So a couple factors go into this decision now. If I attack this province, he's got his whole military home. He could probably attack me back. But, you know, bag with it. I'm going for it. We're going to do it. So
it's probably AFK.
Yeah, probably. I mean, look at this guy. He's got 800 acres. He must have just come out of protection. So we go to the war room. We come over here. We choose the proper target. We want traditional march. That's what we're looking for. We're not going to change the hours. That would affect our gains, and you can usually test, to see what you might get. Adding an hour gives us 10% more gains, but we're going to keep that right at 0 so we can figure out. Let's do the calculation, right? We've got, he had 800 acres times 15%. Our attack should be for 120 acres. So let's see what we do, what we get here. I'm only going to send, let's see, I think I have.
You're using how much of your offense are you using?
All of my offense, I believe.
It's all your offense. You should probably use 3 or 4 gens. You get that extra bit of efficiency that's effectively less losses for you.
Okay. So let's see. What is Smile saying here? I have 1 general to send, and the defense has automatically populated because when we choose the province, the intel site that we have automatically grabs the intel, the latest intel that we have for this province, and it was a spy on military, and the age of that intel is 1 minute old. So we know it should be pretty accurate, and it's going to automatically populate that right here in the target defense area. If we wanted to change it, we could manually type it in, but we don't need to do that because we know it's accurate. And so what Smiles is saying there, and we spoke about this briefly before, if I use this fill button to attack, it says I don't have enough offense because my 10,000 offensive specialists equals exactly the amount of defense of our target, which means I would fail, wouldn't I? And so the autofill doesn't automatically populate soldiers. So I do have 1 soldier here, which would give me 1 more offense than our target. And that is all we need to successfully attack this province. But what Smiles was trying to say there is, if I send 10,000 troops and let's just say the military casualties is 5%, I'm going to lose 500 troops. But if I use these extra generals that I have, we can send a maximum of 4 generals, right? Deployable generals, 4. We always need to keep 1 at home. So we have 5. We can send 4. So if we send 4 generals, what Smiles alluded to there is generals add additional offense. And now if I hit this fill button again, so let's remove the soldier so it doesn't affect anything. But if we hit this fill button again, it's going to recalculate my modified offense with my troops. And so now it's going to send 8,800 troops, which is...
That's an effective savings of 12%.
There we go. There you go. And maybe if I need to, I can find a different target that I could send towards 1,200 offense specs to take some acres, or maybe I'm just going to keep them home in case I get, retailed, and then I can use those to ambush and other things, which we're going to get into in a few minutes. So by doing this, I am sending 41,626 offense. It is sending 101.03% because I have chosen here to send 1%. When I hit this autofill button, it's going to send 1% more. Now I could change this to +1, which is going to save us even more troops there, Smiles, except it's going to send exactly about 1 troop more than necessary, 41210. So I could probably send, if I adjust this, I could probably send a little bit less, 41206. And see, this is what you would do manually entering troops. See, I could do this. I could have saved 2 whole troops there, Smiles. I mean, sometimes it comes down to the troop, doesn't it?
No, I don't think any wars ever come down to 2-0 specs.
I guess maybe you just haven't been in enough wars there, Smiles. So now you can. Some of these other auto buttons are to allow you some wiggle room, right? If there's been some time that's gone that has passed, soldiers on the Genesis server do have defensive values. Somebody could have sent them soldiers. If a tick has passed, which I actually think a tick has passed in the time that we've been talking about doing this attack. Although I think if I remember correctly, if we go back to the spy on military that we got, there were no defensive specs in training before the tick. Although, what if he came online, trained some troops right before the tick? Now I don't know. I could be chancing it here, couldn't I? And so if we auto 3%, it fills, it sends a few more troops. It sends more than the 100% +1 defense needed, but it would almost certainly guarantee victory. So I usually leave it on 1% just because that's what I do for whatever reason, but we could definitely do +1. Let's use auto 1% here today. And we're going to do it. What did we say? 120? 120 acres? All right, let's see what we get. Prepare military. Are you sure you want to send this? I am sure. Let's do it. We got 96 acres. 96 acres, okay. So we can look into seeing what some of the differences were that may have affected our gains there. Oh, and the other thing that makes Genesis a little weird is there are acres created on Genesis, so the attack formula has a whole lot of variables as compared to the World of Legends formula. But we can see all the different things that happened here. So we did win. We took 96 acres. On Genesis, it tells you how much honor you gained. You don't actually get that on World of Legends, so it's a nice little added feature there. We gained 49 honor. We lost 656 magicians. We promoted troops to elites, and then we killed a whole bunch of troops. And so now, what I'd like to do is, we're going to now transform into Smiles over here. And let's see. So we've got Smiles' province magically under our control. And let's see what happened. As we look over here, we are no longer 800 acres. You caught me a bunch of times there. Smiles, your thieves. Doing their job. 2.8 TPA. Doing their job. Stopped me, but ultimately we came through and we attacked. Captured, as it says over here, 77 acres. And lost some honor. Lost some troops. But what do we do now, Smiles? What's your first course of action?
My first thing when my gains aren't what I expect is I double check their gangbang protection or multi-attack protection, because that's the most likely culprit you'll find in the wild. So double check the old intel you had. After that, I'd be looking at guard stations and net worth range.
Okay.
I don't see any guard stations.
No guard stations, no science, no, I actually don't know if there's a stance. Nope, stance is normal. Yeah, so we're going to chalk it up to Genesis mechanics there, affecting our expected gains on that hit there. And so now, as we are the defender who just received the attack, we are the province of Smiles, and Smiles is going to look to retaliate. And so first thing, I would probably do is take a look at the kingdom. Would you agree with that, Smiles? Who else in that kingdom could attack me, could attack us? Is there a better target in that kingdom? What does it look like for me? So as Smiles, he's 99,000 net worth. His potential target, the person that attacked him, is 107,000 net worth. So it's going to actually be, slightly a top feed here. So let's change our target kingdom. So it's 108%, right? So still very close. So it's going to be right within that, max gains range, which will ensure that we're not, losing any potential gains from hitting outside of those ideal ranges there. But we need to get some intel. So let's see what happened. And first thing I'll typically do is grab that Spy military. And we can see here how long the army was out for, how many generals were sent, how many troops were sent, and the captured land and all this stuff here. So we can see defense at home. How much offense do we have to send? If we go and look at our throne page, we have 65,000, and the target has about 20,000 defense. So we can definitely retaliate, but the question is it a good retaliation? And with that province being directly in our max gain range, there's no other provinces in the kingdom that would be better for us to attack. The next discussion becomes, should we ambush or should we just traditional march? Should we traditional march a couple times? What's it going to take to ambush? And so, Smiles, what are your what's the method that you use to sort of determine the best strategy going forward on what to attack, how to attack, and the order of operations there? You know, whether it's ambush first, traditional march first, multiple trad marches, or in between. What are your thought processes there?
You want to, in almost all cases, maximize the gains to yourself and maximize the damage to your enemy. Um, in this case, he's pretty fat. I probably wouldn't ambush because I'm going to be hitting him for over 100 acres. He hit me with a bunch of O specs. It's going to be kind of a tough ambush for not a lot. Whereas if I trad him, I'm getting those spec converts because it's Genesis. I'm getting a bit of honor. And I'm getting credits as well. Free peasants. All that stuff's pretty good.
Yeah,
No, I
yeah.
noticed his defense went up, so I'm gonna have to get that spy on military because those converts came in,
Well, yeah, they're
and I'll
probably not. They're
notice,
probably not home quite yet.
yeah, I'll notice, this guy's got 20,000 defense. I'm pretty sure I can triple tap that. So I might even be checking, hey, does he have some science I could take? Could I plunder him first? If so, I do those attacks first because they institute a very small multi-attack protection, whereas a trad march is going to give quite a bit. So if I don't want to do either of those attacks, I'd just trad the guy. I might trad him twice, might trad him 3 times. Um, Depends if I want to make an enemy or not.
Sure.
Um,
Right, because he attacked us one time, and the meter, if you recall, we talked a little bit about relations a little bit last time. We're not going to go into the all the details of how to play with the meter and things like that, but one attack here in Genesis provides 3 meter points. The unfriendly and hostile levels are much smaller than on World of Legends, and we spoke about potentially 9 attacks in retaliation against a kingdom that was attacking you before you get to hostile and things like that. So much different here on Genesis. Kingdoms are smaller, relations you know, escalate much quicker, and war can happen much quicker. So here on Genesis, if you were to retaliate 4 times, you basically give your opponent the opportunity to declare war on you, and so that's going to come into consideration as to how we actually respond here. But one of the other things that I always like to point out to especially newer players is things that may not be specifically intuitive. And as we're looking at our target province right here, the target kingdom, right? I've been getting some of the intel as Smiles was talking there. I was grabbing some of this intel so that we could see, he mentioned, should we plunder? Do they have a lot of resources? Does he have a lot of science? Should we take some science? Because, as you mentioned, that doesn't provide a whole lot of that multi-attack protection and still provides us a lot of resources potentially. They don't have much science and there's not a lot of resources, but I got that information already, and I don't want to waste stealth doing it again. So we can come right here to the kingdom page, and these are actually buttons over here. One of them is going to show you the recent intel that you've gathered. So the spy on throne was added 0 hours ago, so we can take a look at what that was when we gathered that intel. The spy on military also there, so we can see all this stuff. Again, it's not up to date to the second right now, but this is a replica of what we received earlier. And so we can take a look at some of this stuff again without wasting the stealth to get new intel, understanding that it could be a little bit old. So we can see the science, not much, no science is invested. It doesn't show how many books were unallocated, but there were a few thousand, not enough to warrant a learn here though. But so we can see 20,601 defense. We're about 30 seconds to 10 seconds to a tick here. So we're gonna let it tick there for a moment while I take us through looking for those ambush numbers. So we have 65,000 offense, and Smiles said, hey, we can probably hit this guy a bunch of times. He's only got 20,000 defense. So what we want to do is figure out just how many times can we hit him, and could one of those also be an ambush. So we go to the new Intel site here. That's the button that I just pressed there, right over here, new IS. So we go to the new Intel site, and we're going to choose enemy, and I'm going to put in the target kingdom here. We have this unnamed kingdom. It's got our province right here. And I'm going to press this button right over here, this armies button. Press this armies button, and now we can see how much time before his army gets home, how many acres is in that attack, how many generals are in that attack, the ambush value. So this is the number that I will put in. You remember when we filled the war room earlier, it automatically populated some defense there. So when ambushing, it's a little bit trickier. So we're going to go through that specifically so we can see how that works. But 29,989 points to ambush. Smiles. What does that tell you right off the bat?
That tells me that that's an expensive ambush.
It's a very expensive. I mean, 20,000 to make a full traditional march. And so this is why Smiles mentioned right away when he started telling us what to do here. He said trad march is going to definitely be the way to go if you're looking to grab acres, because our target, if we go back to this information here, we go take a look at them. Our target has 1,200 acres. So even at at a 15% gain, which is what traditionally Genesis is, that's 180 acres. Ambush is only going to provide us 50% of, and this is where Genesis can be a little tricky. It's only going to provide us 50% of the acres that we lost, and we lost 77 acres. Okay, so 50% of that is not even close to 180 acres. So our best bet is going to be to trad march. So that is where our best gains will be. But I do want to show everybody watching the difference between making a trad march as a retaliation and an ambush. So a couple things that I think about, especially in order of our operations. If we're going to do both, which is the better one to do first? Because as we've talked about so far, one of the most important factors in making an attack is that relative net worth. And right now, the relative net worth is 108%, which again puts us right within that some of the best gains that we can get. If we were to ambush first, it's a set amount of acres, right? 50% of what was taken from us. That will never change. Whether that relative net worth is 10%, 200%, or 100%. It never changes. You always take the same amount. And so you want to determine what's going to still, as Smile said there, provide you the best gains for what you're looking to take. And for our traditional march, we want them to have as low multi-protection as possible and the best relative net worth percentage that we can get. And so in this particular situation, it really won't matter much in the order in which we go. So what I'm going to do, because I like to see the 108%, I don't want to lower that anymore. I want to hit at 108%. So we will traditional march first. So we've got our war room loaded, so we did go through a tick. Why don't we get new intel, because that's good practice there. Let's get some new intel. Make sure everything is still accurate. Okay, it's exactly the same. 20,601, exactly the same. So we'll come right over here to the war room. We will choose our target. It automatically loads that defense there. Spile military, 1 minute old. So it's going to automatically load that. We've got traditional march suggested. Now we don't want to add 4 generals, otherwise we have no generals to send on our other attacks, whether it's trad march, learn, plunder, ambush, or just a completely random attack. So we're going to send 1 general here, as long as we have enough offense, and we have plenty of offense. So we hit the fill here. We'll auto to 1% there. So it's going to use about 2/3 of our O specs. We've still got all our elites at home, so we'll have plenty of offense to do other stuff with later. It is sending more than what we need, right? Over 100%. Always good to look to make sure that you're actually sending over 100%. There are rare cases where it doesn't, and if that does happen to you, we always want to hear about it so we can get that fixed, because it should always send more than what is stated here.
Yeah, double check that wording at the bottom is fresh intel. Make sure you hit click def if you need to, if it's not auto-filling right.
Yeah.
There's situations where the autofill on selection will pull up different defense than the get def button. So you just got to make sure, double check everything. In the good old days, you were copy pasting SOMs, so it's not that hard. Just look around and make sure you're safe.
Right. Yeah, so hitting this get defense button is what Smiles is mentioning there. It will...
That pull from if you're in the war room already and say someone else is getting your intel, or even if you have a second tab open getting intel, hitting that get def will auto update with the new stuff. So
yep, absolutely. Great advice there. So we hit the get defense button to make sure it's grabbing the most recent intel that is stored in the intel site. And we know that it is. We are sending more than enough offense. So we're going to make this traditional march attack first. Are we sure we want to do that? Yes, we are. And we took 144 acres. Great attack there. Now,
great attack.
Yeah, it's a victory for us. We took about the same amount of honor that we lost. We took a whole lot more acres, which means this noob over there, David C, probably won't come back and attack us again. But
probably not.
You can never tell with the newbies over there what they're thinking, what they're gonna do. So who knows? Anyway, now we have how much offense do we have left? We have 44,000 offense points left at home. Now this is modified offense. We don't have a whole lot of modifiers here. So we've got about that amount of offense in raw form. So what we're going to do now is just walk us through, how do we ambush? So we've already looked at how do we find the ambush numbers. And that's by coming right here to the Intel site, the new Intel site, clicking on the Armies tab and finding what the ambush number is. So 29989, that's the number that it should be. And again, none of this should have to be input manually, but we're gonna take a look at that. So we go to the war room here, and there is a correct order of operations. I want to make sure we do this right. We've chosen the correct kingdom. We're going to choose the correct target, and now what's going to happen is it's going to automatically load the defense from our most recent intel. Now we know this should have changed because we just made an attack, we killed some troops, so the defense should be different. But the intel site doesn't calculate that, so we would have to get new intel. And this is where Smiles mentioned your kingdom mate gets the intel, and then you would hit the get defense, and it would update after they have the correct intel there for us. But we're not worried about that because we're making the ambush attack. So first thing that we should do is change the attack to ambush. Next thing we want to do is change the ambush, the autofill to ambush. And now we do need to input this number, 29989. It doesn't, it's not going to get defense because it doesn't get defense automatically for ambush because there could be multiple armies out and it doesn't know which one we want to attack. When you are ambushing, and this gets into some really nitty-gritty details here, but if there were multiple attacks against us from the same province, the first ambush you do is going to be the most recent attack. And that might not always be the best ambush for you, but that's the order that it goes in. So there can be other things that we can do, which we'll talk about in another episode. These are advanced war mechanics, aren't they, Miles?
Yeah.
2-9.
Opportunity cost and general cost of ambushes gets a little weird, especially with multi-taps.
Right.
Sometimes you're in a situation where someone hits you multiple times. You only really have one general to spare. You can ambush them, make 3 main attacks, and then when your ambush army gets home, ambush again, and you sort of get double ambush off. Stuff like that happens pretty often.
Yeah, and in most cases, especially when you're in wars like that, the limiting factor is not usually offense. It's usually your generals, and so you've got to decide where they go most effectively. So now some of this stuff is not right here because when we start to choose the options we want in the war room, it does auto fill things automatically. And so now that we have it set up correctly, we've chosen ambush in the attack type. We've chosen ambush here as the autofill that we want to happen. Now we're going to choose fill once we have the correct defense input in the box. So it will automatically do the calculation for you based on raw offense. And so when we're ambushing, and all this you can find in the wiki, which is a great resource. Ambushes are raw offense versus raw defense times 80%. So without getting into those details and looking at that specifically, we're just going to go by, if you want to look at that information, go find it in the wiki so you can do some of those calculations on your own. But the calculations are done here properly. So if we had a whole lot of modifiers to our offense and they had a whole lot of modifiers to their defense, none of that stuff matters here in an ambush. But we do need to know how to calculate it if we're doing it by hand or if we're doing this. And so when we're ambushing, you need one more offense point than defense points to break successfully. So we have put the correct amount in here, 29989. I'm just going to double check that, 29989. We've got the right number in there. And we've got all the right settings checked. We hit the autofill button, and it has automatically put in 29998. So that is more than enough. We could definitely remove some of these things. 29991. Let's see if we can get it exact. Oops. 29994. That's going to do it. It's exactly. I don't have a soldier. 29989. Forget what tricksters are. Tricksters are 7, I think, in this. And marauders are 5.
Really trying to get the most out of every troop, are you?
Well, I wanted to just show people that you only need one more, but I guess it's okay. So we are sending 29994 offense against 29989 defense. This for an ambush should work for us, and it's going to take about 50. It's going to take 50% of the acres that we lost. We ambush. Are you sure you want to send this? Yes, we are. Managed a victory. We recaptured 40 acres. No honor on ambushes. We lost some troops. We killed a whole bunch of troops. One of the things about ambushes, you usually kill a whole lot of troops, and those are all offensive troops. So there's a lot of benefits to doing an ambush. Your forces return faster, right? It's a faster attack. You do more damage, especially to offensive troops, to the enemy. And, some of the other factors that go into should I ambush, should I not ambush, is how many acres do we want that province to have? And again, those are some advanced war tactics. If you're trying to limit the amount of acres that a particular province gets, you ambush all their hits, and now they receive 50% less than what they attacked for. All right, so that's finding a target, making your initial attack. We saw David C. attack Smiles. We saw Smiles return with a retaliation directly for more acres than David C. took from him. And then we saw Smiles ambush. A whole lot of great information there. Now, anything else you want to add to those attacks that we just made there?
For the basics, that's just fine. Other things you'd be looking at doing, pre-attack spells you might cast, pitfalls if you want extra kills, things like that. But for just your basic, attack, retail, ambush, that's all pretty good.
All right. And one more thing that I wanted to just go through here, since we're looking at the new Intel site, there's some really great stuff here, and I want to be able to show us all the new features that are coming in the new Intel site. One of which is the WPA calc, the wizards per acre. So let's get back over to Smiles. And now, in order to get an accurate wizard per acre calculation, there's no operation that provides this information directly. There's no way to know how many wizards somebody else has. And so what we can do is several thievery operations in a row on the same tick, which again, we're just about to cross a tick. Or, okay, so the tick just happened, so we're good. You want to make sure, so a couple of things you want to pay attention to here when you're doing a WPA calculation. You want to make sure it's on the same tick. Otherwise, population, drafting, all these things that could affect the net worth, which is how the WPA calculation is done. It's calculating net worth that we can't see. Net worth that we can't see is basically wizards. Everything else has, everything in the game has a net worth value. And the only thing that we don't know is the amount of wizards. So if we can calculate everything else, by process of elimination, we can calculate how many wizards that province should have. So the way that I do this, and Smiles, feel free to weigh in here. The first thing I do is a spy on throne, and then I go I just cycle through the others based on whatever is easiest to click for me. But I usually always get the spy on throne first, because that's most of the time, for me anyway, where I see it could mess it up is if somebody else got a spy on throne like 2 minutes ago before the tick, and then I get the next intel. I don't want the calculation to start doing, do the calculation before I can update the spy on throne and have it use an old spy on throne, which might throw off the calculation. Now it shouldn't do that. There are some things that have been put in place for it not to do that. But for me, having worked through initial iterations of a wizard per acre calculation from long ago, these are some of the habits that I've just ingrained in myself that I like to always stick to. I know that I'm doing it properly. But first thing I do, that's spy on throne. We get the spy on throne, and then very quickly after, we get a survey, because we want to see how much barren land there is, how many built acres there are, and how many acres are in construction. Now we don't see acres in construction, but we know based on the spy on throne and other stuff how many acres that province should have. We're going to check the spy on sciences, because science books have net worth value, and we're going to get an infiltration. We want to know how many thieves they have, and that should do it. So now we've got the 4 major thief operations: the spy on throne, survey, spy on sciences, and the infiltration. So we can see everything that province has for net worth, accountable net worth, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the calculation should occur automatically. We go into the Intel site. It should tell us the estimated wizards per acre. Now, I actually believe I have to add this. I don't think it starts. I don't think it's shown automatically. I think it's a field that you have to add. There's a WPA. Let's refresh. Make sure we've got.
Did you calc Smiles or did you calc David? I forget.
I calced David. I was on Smiles. Right. Let's see. Yes. We are on Smiles and we calced David. Estimated WPA. Where is it? So the WPA is not showing. Calculated from wizards, estimated on. So it's all right. Why isn't it showing here? I wonder if the Genesis WPA calc is not currently active. Sometimes it doesn't work on Genesis. World of Legends is always updated, but Genesis, because it restarts so frequently and net worths adjust, I don't believe it is automatically pulling information to adjust that age to age. And with this age just starting a couple days ago, it may not be there. Take a quick look. Okay, yeah, so I've got some guys saying that's not working on Genesis. Okay, can we do this on World of Legends? I can, but I'd have to move my province out of protection and other stuff like that. So we're not gonna do that here today. I will set it up next time. So we'll do a quick review on our next episode where we'll get a WPA calc that is working. But regardless, you would see it right here in this section here for WPA. It would estimate the amount of wizards that are there and give you an accurate, a fairly accurate estimation on wizards. In my testing of this, anytime we've adjusted these formulas, I do always test it personally, and it's usually pretty accurate. Down to it may not be down to the one or two wizards, but as Smiles mentioned already, you're not going to win wars with one or two troops, isn't that right? One or two wizards probably not going to make the difference either. But yeah, so that's how you would do the WPA calculation. Anything? Now, why is the WPA calculation so important, Smiles? What are some things that you'll use that for when you're planning for wars, hostiles, all kinds of stuff?
Yeah, intel's pretty important. If you don't know what you're targeting, you're just going to be inefficient. You don't necessarily want your best wizard doing the same spell on every province there. You want your best wizard targeting someone difficult. Otherwise, you could have had a province with half the wizards and, more thieves, more peasants, more troops. So you need that intel to target effectively. You also need that intel to identify threats. Now, the name of all warring is how do you secure threats of your own while eliminating all the enemy threats. So enemy threats can be economic threats, they can be offensive threats, they can be defensive threats, which is mostly economical. So if you see enemy provinces with one WPA, in the back of your head, well, I'm never going to be worried about them economically because I'm always going to be able to fireball them. Whereas, if they have an unbreakable wizard with 8 WPA, you go, I'm never going to be able to fireball them. It's going to be almost impossible to keep meteor showers on them. So what ways can I deal with this threat? Now you can ignore them and just acknowledge, okay, they have one super wizard. It's going to do whatever it wants. We work around it. Or you can say, okay, can we reach that with our armies? Can our thieves break it? How do we mitigate this threat? And it gets you a good idea of what the kingdom's been doing. Say it's not in war yet, you're getting WPA calcs, it's mid-age. If you see a lot of provinces with high science, you see a lot of provinces with high wizards, you go, okay, they're focusing on that long-term plan. They're being efficient. That gives you a big idea of the strength of the kingdom because, like it or not, top kingdoms are top kingdoms because they use all of their time throughout the age effectively. If they're not using it effectively, they're not going to have very many wizards. So, you know, just having information is so crucial to this game. That's why half the operations are intel operations. Um, so yeah, you really need WPA calcs to identify threats and target efficiently are the main things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, excellent information there. And some of these things will definitely have to bring on a panel of top war leaders and have some discussions on strategy, discussions on choosing war targets and pre-war intel and pre-war plans and certain things like that. Not asking for you to give away the secret sauce there, Smiles, but just some insight.
There's
Especially,
very few secrets. The game's mostly easy.
yeah,
There's sort of a script you can follow. If A, then B. If not A, then C.
sure.
Chain offense, fireball peasants, meteor showers people. If you do those three things, you're in the top 10%.
Setting yourself up for success for sure. And so I was just reading some of the comments that people were making, and the 96 acre grab that we did make is in line with 12% gains on Genesis, which makes sense in the sense that we recently changed the way that our repos are being sort of stored between branches so that we can reconfigure them very easily between ages. Genesis typically follows World of Legends, and especially after a new Worlds of Legend age, we have to merge everything from the new World of Legends into the Genesis branch. And as we've been doing things more recently, we've been trying to make it much easier for us to do that. And long story short, it looks like the Genesis gains are not in Genesis right now. It is just using World of Legends gains, so everything looks to be exactly as it should. All right, so I was looking at some of the discussion in the Conclave over there, and there's a couple things that I did want to touch on. Let's see. So you mentioned, using the bot in the game is not something that we do for Ambush anymore. We are actively working on a new bot that should be out in the very near future. That will replace the in-game bot and your Discord bot that everybody's currently using. That'll use the new Intel site. Right now we are kind of transitioning in a transition period between the old bot, the new bot, the old Intel site, the new Intel site. It is always recommended to use new Intel site for just everything that you can. And there are some features that are in the old Intel site that are not in the new Intel site yet. But as we transition into the new Intel site, it's just going to be better and easier for everybody to start using that as we introduce things, so that it's not a big thing once the old Intel site is finally removed for you. Okay, so let's see here.
I like the new Intel site because it's got pictures for the spells.
It does. It does have pictures for the spells. It's pretty cool. And if you hover over them, so the new Intel site is just there's a ton of things that the old Intel site didn't have, and these are just sort of as we've implemented the old functionality in a new, much more updated format. It provides for just a ton more information in the same or less space, where you can hover over things, see time, see expiration dates, and just like you said, picture. So at a glance, you can just see all the spells that they have and know if they're going to be expiring soon or for a long time, and just know what they have instead of having to read everything. It certainly makes everything very helpful. All right, so one of the things I did want to touch on, the WPA calc. So right now there's still sort of a WPA calc that will automatically be pushed into your Discord server if you're using the Discord bot, which utilizes the old Intel site. The old Intel site still does a WPA calc that is not always accurate. The WPA calc that you should always be looking at is the new Intel site WPA calc that we just showed you. Whatever is being pushed through the bot may not be accurate 100%, and so it could cause some false hope there, thinking that WPAs are different than what they actually might be. That's one thing that I just want to mention there. But we haven't really looked at the old bot here in the sessions here, and we didn't talk about it very much, but I do want to just clarify that when you're looking for WPA calcs, gather the intel, go to this section right here, new Intel site, and look at that WPA section on whoever it is, whatever kingdom or whatever target it is you're looking for, and you'll have the best information that you can have. So why don't we just take a quick moment, and if there's questions that people have that they want to ask, whether it's me, Smiles, or on the things that we've looked at and gone over today. Any questions? Have you been taking a look at any of the discussion over there?
There was some opportunity cost discussions on Intel, which is, WPA calcs aren't free.
Right. Yeah.
Even if it's just core stealth, you're looking at lots of fails.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting TM Intel and lots of stealth. If you play a style where you're massacring enemy cores a lot, your core stealth does real damage. So WPA calcs have a cost, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
They're certainly easier than they've been pretty much ever. 10 ages ago, Spy on Science got easier. 5% intel in general makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, so instead of having the 10% requirement for sending to get accurate intel, you're sending less thieves, which means when you lose or when you fail, you're going to lose less thieves and things like that. So certainly, like that's probably one of the biggest things. When I do play, it's usually on Genesis to test things and test mechanics and do things like that. A kingdom of 6 players is a whole lot different than a kingdom of 25 players. Right, one province can basically get all the WPA calcs on an enemy when there's only 6 targets there. When you're talking about 25, granted there's a whole lot more stealth within the kingdom, but you're talking about getting a whole lot of intel. Right, you have to get 4 operations, right? Spy on throne, survey, spy on sciences, and the infiltrate. And they're not easy. They're not all easy. They are easier than they were in the past, but they're not easy, especially if you're trying to get that on the provinces that matter. Some of the provinces that matter are the more difficult ones, like enemy TMs, and things like that. You're not going to want to update very often. It's usually for me anyway, it's a one-time thing, right? You get it when you're trying to figure out what your plans are, and after that, it's based on what we knew a day ago, what we knew 2 days ago, what we knew before, and then determining what our plan of attack is as things progress throughout the war.
Remember the good old days of needing to spend 35% thieves into war or out of war for accurate intel?
Yeah.
And in and out of war was extra hard.
It was harder.
Like watching your old core lose a whole raw WPA or raw thief on a single WPA calc that was inaccurate anyways.
Yeah.
So quality of life for the ghettos is out of this world compared to how it used to be.
Yeah. No, certainly. Yeah, some of those things.
And yet the ghettos still aren't getting WPA calcs. Let's be real.
Well, maybe after today they'll see how important it is. Yeah, because I mean you can't without having the information. It's really hard to plan any kind of attack or strategy, especially when you're going to be going to war with potential.
Well, and just as you're learning, if you're doing things without that information, you have a lot less feedback. Why didn't this work? Why did this work? We knew this information. We enacted this plan. This went wrong. And you can connect those dots. So even if you're not directly using the information, you should be getting that information because that's how you form those connections and that's how you improve. So, the use of me having WPA calcs is different than, a new war leader that's just sort of getting started and learning. So
yeah, certainly. Having more information always better than having less information.
Revival asks, what do I build for attacking?
Sure. Great question.
Well, that's a pretty wide answer. It depends if you're, my basic is I'm a standard war core. In war, what do I need? You always need some amount of watchtowers. It's usually 15% plus or minus 5 in almost any war for any attacker. The speed at which Night Strike can tear through your province is blinding if you don't have watchtowers. You always need your farms, you always need dungeons, you always need some towers and guilds. You might have 8 towers, 8 guilds, and you're just casting a couple self spells now and then. You might need 12 towers and 12 guilds because you're aiding runes and you're casting bloodlust and patriotism frequently. TGs on almost every war build in that 10 to 15% range. Hospitals can vary, but you're also looking at that 10% range. The buildings that are sort of, do I build this or do I not build this, are things like barracks and castles. Those will come down a lot more to your kingdom plan, and forts as well. If you sort of run a defensive kingdom style, you might be looking at more hospitals and forts. If you're looking at a very high offense, glass cannon style, you may be looking at barracks and guard stations. So as long as you always have watchtowers, you always have hospitals, and you got a few TGs, you got your basics covered. That gets you pretty far. It's really that last 20% that your war leader should be directing you around.
right? Whether you want, barracks, forts, castles, depending. And usually, as an attacker, forts, for me anyway, not necessarily much of the conversation. Maybe at least in the beginning of the war for me anyway. It's usually something that I'll put in later, depending on how the war goes. Provinces that start having more defense, making it more difficult for them to be attacked from the enemy, reducing the amount of attacks that are coming in from the enemy, things like that. So forts can be useful sometimes, but yeah, there's usually the core buildings, like Smile said, they're training grounds, hospitals, watchtowers, and then the flex buildings that you can either adjust based on plan, like barracks, changing the attack time for your kingdom, whether or not your attackers are all using it, or some are using it, or the faster ones are using it to be even faster. And then just kingdom strategy. If you're going to be attacking a lot, maybe there's high barracks and high hospitals to reduce the amount of losses with the increased amount of attacks that you're going to make. All these things are factors that you could use to determine what your build strategy might be. Once you've got your build strategy, utilizing the in-game build tool, you can save that as war start attack. Save that, and then you can fill that right in automatically. Now, currently this doesn't go across devices or anything like that, but it does help you when raising. So I don't have to raise anything. If I raise something, it would automatically input that in there for getting the build that I want to accomplish here. So great question there from there. There was another question that came in while you were talking, Smiles, about the WPA calc, whether or not when you get that WPA calc and you're looking in the Intel site at it, whether or not the listed WPA here is going to be a raw or a modified WPA there. I believe the WPA that will be shown here is going to be modified.
Yeah. If it says just WPA like that, that'll be the raw wizards. Within the new IS, if you're looking for modified numbers, not 100% sure where that stuff is. I've hardly used the new IS because it's, you know, without that Discord and in-game integration, it's pretty hard to use for a lot of management.
Mm-hmm.
On a player level, it's not so bad. But just as a leader right now, I find it still, everyone who's interacting with the bot in Discord is still interacting with the old Intel site, so that's what gets used the most.
Right. Yep, and hopefully we'll be bringing the new bot up to speed very soon so that we can start to transition away from needing the old Intel site for certain things. All right, well, Smiles, we've gone on for quite some time here. This was supposed to be short and concise, and we started getting away from things here, but I do think there was a whole lot of great information here that we were able to share and go over and look at with making an attack, retaliating, ambush, how to find the ambush, accurate ambush information, always making sure that it's the right information, knowing which army to attack. And so that was one thing that we probably didn't look at, but we could. Why don't we actually look at that really quick right now? Now, from David C, if we go and take a look at Smiles attacked twice. So there's 2 armies that are out. So now if we go to the new Intel site and take a look at armies that are out. Armies. There's 2 armies out here. So we can see the return time, we can see the acres, so we can see all these things that are there. We see the ambush amounts. One of the things we touched on while we were talking about this was the order in which an ambush will happen. So an ambush, it's not how soon the attack will get home. Right? So Don't confuse it with how, the closer attack to home, because it could, the the enemy that hit you could have attacked you and set several different times and altered their attack time. So the time that the army is getting home is not specifically the best indicator as to which is the right attack to you will be attacking first. Now, you don't have a choice, and this is what makes those generals so important, to know which which attacks you want to make. So in this scenario, how do you determine which attack is going to be ambushed first? It's always the most recent attack. So that was the attack for 40 acres. So if we look at, that intel, the attack for 40 acres. Now it does just so happen that it is the most, the army that is coming home sooner, because it was an ambush, and ambushes take less time. So if these were attacked in order, these would be, if they were both traditional marches, both of these attacks would be swapped. The positions would be swapped, because the more recent attack would be coming home later than the other attack, if that makes sense. But the easiest way for me to tell, and probably for everybody watching, when you look at the spy on military, or rather the news, the Kingdom News, the most recent attack, right? So that's this one for 40 acres. And then I can look at the Intel Site ambush section and see the 40 acre attack. So that ambush value is going to be 13,519. Now, Smiles, which attack would you rather ambush if you had generals and you had the troops to attack?
Probably the more acre one.
If we were looking at, if we wanted acres, that would be the one to attack. If we wanted to kill troops,
to kill elites, then the smaller one.
Then we might want to attack that, especially with them both being about the same amount of defense there on the ambush. It's going to really be determined by what your goal is. If you want acres, or if you want the other person to not have acres, you want to attack the bigger, the bigger army. But if you're looking to just kill elites, maybe you want to ambush that first army. If you only have one general, you don't have a choice. You can only make one ambush, and you're going to ambush the most recent attack, which would be the 40 acres one. If you had two armies, but not enough, if you had two generals, but not enough offense to ambush both of them, if you don't have time to ambush one, get home, and ambush the other, you can always fail your first ambush and then ambush the second army.
Now you're getting into advanced techniques.
Very advanced techniques there, utilizing the resources that you have to do, accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. But ultimately,
so to better explain that, you can only ambush an army once, and that includes if you fail. So if you intentionally send one soldier on an ambush, it will cycle through to the next ambush for you. So
right.
Say you're attacked by someone at the start of a chain for 1,000 acres, and then once you're all the way down, they hit you again for 30 acres as a bit of ambush protection. You could bounce that last hit with one soldier, and then with your second general, ambush that first large army. And that's just it's a more efficient use of offense, but that does come with a general cost. So.
Sure. Yep. All right. So, and I think that should just about do it for today. Wrap things up here. So once again, Smiles, thank you for being here. I appreciate your input and the advice that you are able to offer to everybody that is listening here now and will listen in later. So I think we went through quite a whole lot of great stuff here today. Attacking, ambushing, WPA calcs, looking at the new Intel site, looking at some of those somewhat unknown areas of the existing game. Those seeing the old intel that you've gathered right on the Kingdom page. All that stuff is there, and it's not, like I said, it's not 100% intuitive. Those buttons are fairly small, but they are there so that you don't have to, go access the Intel site, to see everything. You can see it right within the game, and all kinds of great stuff. So thank you for being here, Smiles. Appreciate it, and look forward to the next session Whatever topics anybody might want to have us talk about, and please share that with us in the conclave right in Discord, and let us know what you want to hear about. That'll do it. Everybody, have a good day. Good luck.
Cheers.